Hello, everybody.
Hi, Lara. How are you?
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to all those that are joining from all over the country. Soon we'll be saying all over the world. But thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time. We know more and more people will be joining the call, but we are going to get started right on the dot. So thank you so much to everyone who's taken the time to come. Today we have an incredible guest, an incredible speaker, Miss Danielia Pillay, who is an HR expert. She calls us. I'll give you the chance to introduce yourself, so I won't really say much. But today we are graced with someone who is an expert in the hiring and the recruitment of tech talent. And today she's going to share with us what to expect in 2025 if you're someone looking for a job or you're an HR specialist looking to hire tech talent. Today we're going to have the full scoop. So without further ado, I will leave the floor to Miss Pillay to take over.
Thank you so much, Lara. I appreciate it, and thank you for having me.
We can't hear you. I don't know if it's just on my side.
I'm unmuted. How about now?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, as I was saying, thank you so much for having me. I do appreciate it, and thank you to all the attendees for taking the time out of your busy schedules. It is much appreciated. I think in short, I'm Danielia Pillay from Box Fusion. I look after the graduate programs at Box Fusion. If you're not very familiar with Box Fusion, we are a South African software development company. So I focus more on the tech recruitment, so your software engineers, your data analysts, business analysts, and so on. So I am just going to get started. I'm going to share my screen. Larith, if you could just let me know when you can see it.
Right, no problem. Yep, we can see it.
Okay, cool. Okay. Is it showing in presenter view now?
No, not yet.
Okay, let me retry that. Okay. Better.
Yeah, better.
Cool. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I do appreciate it. Just in terms of what the agenda is going to look like, so tech hiring practices for 2025. And I decided to touch on AI in recruitment. I know it's the word it's been at the tip of all our tongues this past year a little bit more. So I just wanted to touch on that. Then how candidates can optimize their CV, ensuring that their CV stands out in an applicant tracking system, using AI to your benefit for interviews, for prepping for the recruitment processes, using it in your CV as well. And then, of course, the use of LinkedIn and how it is important in tech recruitment. And then also how keeping a clean online presence is important. So tech hiring practices for 2025. So I did some research, I looked around, I've been also sitting in a few demos in terms of what other recruitment companies are doing, for their hiring practices for 2025 and beyond. And the common one that keeps coming up is automation and AI being used in recruitment. I know when AI first came about, everybody was scared. What's its limitations? What's the risks? What's the dangers? And whilst, yes, there is some, for the HR person, it has been an absolute pleasure knowing that AI and automation is here to help us and relieve the workload. So I think the first things first, with ATS, which stands for Applicant Tracking Systems, which is what recruiters use. So once you click send on your application, it gets sent to the ATS system. Now there's different types, and I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of them, like Workday and Bamboo HR. There's many, but I think just to touch on, the main aspects here, a lot of these systems uses AI to pass the CVs. So basically screening the CVs, and it assesses the skills, experiences, and keywords. And the system generates a score for each candidate, and then ranks them. So here, Danelia is applying for a software engineering role. And for example, Danelia's skills are JavaScript, and C#, and those are the skills that they're actually looking for in the job description. It was noted down. Now, when I go and click submit, what's going to happen on the recruiter side is, before they even see the CV, they're just going to see Danelia's name, and there's going to be a score attached next to it. And the score is basically how good of a match the CV is to the job description. So the more keywords you have in your CV that match the job description, the higher the score generated will turn up. And that's what you want. You want the keywords to match, and typically when recruiters look at CVs, it's already in order, descending order. So the top scoring candidates are at the very top, and those are the ones they look at first, going down. So you want to be sure that your CV is at the top. And then what is the reason for the use of automation and AI? And then I know some of the ongoing topics online, and the discussions is, how are recruiters using AI? People are not even looking at our CVs. I mean, it's an ongoing concern for many individuals. And here's why recruiters are using AI. In high demand fields like tech, and especially in South Africa, where we know that there's an unemployment problem, recruiters are receiving thousands of applications. Sometimes even I've had the experience myself where I posted a vacancy for a senior software engineer, and I had a grad straight out of university actually applying for the role. And I mean, it's things like that that leave recruiters with an abundance of CVs and applications to go through. So we are trying to beat that to ensure that the people we spend time looking at those CVs, those are the talented individuals that are meant for the role. And I'll give you a real life example, which is something I experienced just last year. When I was hiring for the graduate software engineer role at Box Fusion, I put out a job vacancy, and I received over 3,000 CVs, which the truth is recruiters typically spend 6 to 8 seconds looking at a CV. And you, for those of you who are applying for roles, that's your window of impression. You have 6 to 8 seconds to make an impression on a recruiter. Now, here I just have an example. I did the math. If I were to look at all 3,000 CVs spending 6 to 8 seconds, it would take me plus minus 6 hours to go through all of those CVs. Now, instead of me spending 6 hours looking at CVs and finding that maybe 50% of them don't even match the role, I can just look at the ones that are top rated or top ranked according to what the system threw out. And you can see here with AI, I can look at the ones that have the highest match score. So that is just how AI and automation is being used by recruiters in terms of the applicant tracking system. Another key thing is with regards to, the volume of applications, recruiters are trying to have little intervention into the recruitment process, whereby we only get the opportunity to actually interact with candidates later on in the recruitment process. So you send in your CV, I send you a screening, or the system sends you a screening assessment. It generates the score based on how well you did. If, for example, it's 50% and above, you automatically get sent to the next stage. If you meet the required marks for the stage, whatever it may be, if it's a skills assessment, then it automatically sends you a video interview, for example, which at that stage is when somebody is actually reviewing your responses and the CV as well together. And that's when there is human intervention. I mean, I know in Box Fusion's experience, there's a little more human intervention as compared to bigger enterprises where they are full-on recruitment teams. I mean, I'm one individual just doing grad recruitment. So in the bigger organizations, there's little intervention. But in the smaller organizations like Box Fusion, there is a little more. Now, I'm sure all of you are familiar with, or you have been requested to do a one-way video interview. You get an automated mail or an email from a recruiter saying, hi, can you please, click the link. Questions will be prompted on screen and you will have a set specific amount of time to answer it. And then your responses get recorded. And once you're done, it automatically goes to the recruiter and the hiring panel, and they get to watch it in their own time and give you feedback. And whilst this is a very recent development, it's developing at a rapid rate as well. They are now making use of AI in the one-way video interviews as well. So whereby previously it would be the question pops up on screen, please introduce yourself. Now they're actually putting in place AI avatars. So let's pretend Nelia is one, and instead of the question coming up on screen, the avatar is asking, please can you introduce yourself? And whilst the avatar is there, it is also doing some extra work in the background. So it is analyzing your facial expressions, your body language, and your responses as well. So it's gotten to the extent where an individual doesn't actually have to watch your one-way video interview anymore. The AI is able to analyze it for the recruiter and the hiring panels, and they will just give the hiring panel a short summary of what it is you said, for example. So this is Danelia Pillay, this is her experiences, this is her qualifications, this is how she answered certain questions. So they're becoming really, really skilled in using AI in these one-way video interviews, examining, cues from body language and communication skills. But I think more than ever, these one-way video interviews are being used to monitor more the soft skills and the culture fit for an organization. So how do you feel about teamwork? Are you a team player? How do you manage tight deadlines? One-way video interviews are typically used for those type of questions. And the technical questions we usually leave for the actual interview where you get to sit in front of us, which most people, I believe, actually tell me that's more nerve-wracking. They should have put it in the video interview. It would have been better. But that is just in terms of the AI video interviews. And then I think the reason why I included this is it can be overwhelming. The job search is overwhelming for individuals. I mean, being told that your CV may never even get looked at in a recruitment process, it's quite disheartening for anybody looking for a job. So why I included this particular section is best practice for you to stand out in your application. You want to ensure that when you submit that CV, it has potentially the highest match score to the job description, so that your CV is at the top, so that the recruiter is most definitely going to open that, okay? So I am just going to go through this. So keyword optimization. Now, I know typically we all have, the standard things we generally put on our CV, your education, background or previous experience. If you're a grad, you would have an aspirational role, something along the lines of, especially in the short summary at the top, a grad would say, I'm an aspiring software developer. I've worked on these projects or attended these hackathons, for example. But what you would want to do, for example, if there is a job spec or a job ad, you take that job spec, put it into ChatGPT and say, give me keywords to include in my CV based on the spec. And as much as that is great, and it will really, really help you in terms of keyword optimization, I do want you to all be mindful of the fact that don't include things that you're actually not proficient in or you've never done before. It will come out, especially in an interview. When we sit in interviews, the panel has your CV in front of them and they ask you questions about your CV. And now we're asking you something about C# because you said you know C# on your CV. And then you're like, no, I actually don't. So as much as, yes, keyword optimization is important, but don't make the mistake of putting in things that you're actually not familiar with. Clear and consistent formatting. So AI systems or even systems that don't incorporate AI, they're just written that way. They struggle with complex layouts. So when you're looking for a CV template, always search up simple or ATS-friendly CVs. And there's thousands of potential templates you could use. And I think here it's particularly important. I always people ask me how important is putting a picture on my CV. And my response is often, if you're applying to be a model, sure. Anything else, we don't really care what you look like. And then industry-specific terminology. As sad as it is, I've received CVs from computer science grads. They on their CV, they just put that their education is a BSc in computer science, with no follow-up as to what programming languages they're familiar with, what frameworks they know how to use, what projects they've worked on. You can very well be a computer science student and potentially never have written an actual line of code. So in terms of that, yes, you have to display your education. I'm not saying no, but tell me more about you beyond the qualification. Let me know what you know. The things you've had the opportunity of working on. So please do put on your programming languages, the frameworks you've used, the technologies you're proficient in, and even with this, do not lie, please. If you don't know, that's completely okay. Typically for most graduate programs, we teach you the tech stack. And there's always means of upskilling. Melsoft is particularly great at that. And there's others like Melsoft as well. So please, tell me more than just your qualification. So here is one particular example of a ATS-friendly CV. And I'll be honest with you, my CV is in this format also. I wouldn't tell you something to use if I'm not prepared to use it myself, right? And I'll actually send this to Larith and team after we drop out so they can send it to you guys so you can use as well. And it's pretty straightforward. So at the top, you're going to have your full name. If you have an MBA or a PhD or any certification, you can put it right at the top. And then there is the cell number, email address, LinkedIn profile, GitHub, personal website, and city. So especially in the tech space, oftentimes we want to see what you have worked on. And not everybody uses GitHub, and that's completely okay. Some people do make use of personal websites where they demonstrate the stuff they've worked on. But any place where you have done technical projects, put a link to it so the hiring panel can go and look at the work you've done, the exposure you've had. If you have a LinkedIn profile, which you should, and I'll get to that soon, put it on there as well. Your email address and cell number. I cannot express how important it is to put the correct one. Put a cell phone number that you are going to answer. Put an email address that actually works. And please, 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 I cannot stress enough, do not use your student email addresses. It's such a hassle for the recruiters to remember, oh, I liked Danelia. What was the email? Oh, it's a student email 232 at whatever. It's a lengthy thing to remember. So please use your personal email addresses. Furthermore, student emails are quite temporary. So you don't want to miss out opportunities because the recruiter is now sending emails to an inbox that doesn't exist anymore. And then the reason for putting your city down, typically when individuals apply for roles, sometimes they're out of, the role is out of the province or the city. It's just easier for the recruiter to know, should you make it to the interview process. If you're in Johannesburg, we'll have it in person. If you're out of Gauteng, then we will schedule an online one. So it's just for ease and convenience of knowing which city you're in. And then you can see here an aspirational title. So when you're a grad, you can just say aspiring software developer or aspiring data analyst. And it will be usually a short biography or summary of, what your aspirations are, the programming languages, what part of tech or software development are you particularly interested in, and then education and certifications. So you will have your tertiary qualifications. At this stage, having high school on your CV is not particularly important. We just want to know your latest qualifications in terms of your degree, diploma, higher certificate, whatever it may be. And then certification. So there's Microsoft. You can include your certifications from various boot camps if you have attended them. I think certifications are particularly important because beyond just your formal qualification, it shows the willingness to learn beyond and the willingness to take time to explore something that you are passionate in, which is particularly good. I know as part of the graduate software engineering program at Box Fusion, we actually pay for you to do Microsoft certifications. So some of them we do look out for. And then in terms of a tech role, you would have this tools and technologies, so programming languages, frameworks. And then I think it's something on a lot smaller scale. Are you familiar with the Google or the Microsoft suite? And then are there any other softwares you're familiar with? Like for me now, because I'm an HR person, obviously I won't have programming languages and frameworks, but I would have recruitment software, HRIS, things that I'm familiar with that I use on a day-to-day. If you have any awards and honors, you should be wanting to shout about them on your CV, like you're a Golden Key member, a hackathon winner, anything to that extent. Put it there. We want to know how involved you are in the community, especially the tech community. I know Larith is quite out there in terms of trying to get you guys information. So, always participate in tech-related events. Information is there. Make use of it. Compete and participate in things. It just shows your interest in the tech community beyond your qualification. Okay. And then professional experience, if you don't have any, it's completely okay. I mean, for grads, we don't expect you to have experience. Sometimes it's vacation work or you were a tutor at the university, things like that. You're more than welcome to put it on, but we don't expect you to have experience for graduate roles. And then references, you can include it. I know most graduates put on their lecturers, which is completely fine. And I think the general rule of thumb for a grad, we don't expect a CV more than one page. A one-pager is completely fine. You don't have to fill it up to make it look longer. It's just the key important things that we're going to look for. But don't fill it up or try to make it longer than it actually is, but there's nothing of use in it. So yeah, that is just in terms of the CV aspect. And then use of AI to prepare for interviews. Now, I thought I would include this simply because that's how I got my job at Box Fusion. I used ChatGPT to prepare for my interview. So I am actually going to share useful ways that you could prepare. So there is quite a number of softwares out there, but the one I used was Google Interview Warmer. And basically what it does is you can Google it right now and it will come up. You select the role that you're applying for, and then they will give you possible questions. And then it gives you also some time to answer, and it records your response. And then you could also use ChatGPT. So take the job spec. So let's say Danelia has now invited you for an interview, and potentially it's your first interview as a grad, and you're not sure what to do. So take the job spec and put it into ChatGPT and say, give me possible interview questions for this role. And generally it will throw out both HR questions and technical questions that may come out. I'm not saying all the questions that ChatGPT throws out we will ask. That's not the case. But it's a good benchmark for anticipating what will likely be asked. And not just for tech roles, most roles. I mean, for me, it's always about employment and labor laws and all those lovely things, how I would do recruitment. But as a graduate, we want to understand how you would tackle situations, what's your problem-solving skills. I mean, we don't expect you to know the company tech stack. Not everybody knows C# and JavaScript, for example. But if we were to ask you a question pertaining to it, the acceptable response would be, I've never done or used C#, but this is how I would approach this particular, question. So we want to see your problem-solving skills, just in terms of that. And then the dangers of AI. And I've seen quite a few people make this mistake. I think in terms of emails and emailing the recruiter, at the end of the day, the recruiter is a person. So more often than not, our inboxes are flooded and we're trying to get to you. But some of the emails we get are so impersonal that we can tell it's AI, even to the point where I've seen people, they don't even say dear hiring manager or dear Danelia. It's dear in brackets and then the name as they copied and pasted it from ChatGPT. So yes, using GPT is great. If you don't know how to write an email, sure, make use of it. Draft up your responses, but don't blindly copy and paste to the point where you don't even know what you're actually saying. Okay, be mindful of the way you use it. Also, AI is not always correct. You have to do your own homework. You have to do your own research. Don't rely solely on what is being fed to you. I mean, especially when you're job hunting, you get invited to an interview or you need to do an assessment. Research, use Google, speak to other people who have been interviewed before or have gone for tech interviews. Hey, what was it like? What did they ask you? I think on LinkedIn, there's many guides that come up, or I've seen posts where, top 10 interview questions that ask for a software engineer role. And generally, they're not far off, right? So use those, try to make use of those and incorporate it. Don't solely rely on AI. And then So I mentioned investigate other resources to aid you. I generally don't insert any sensitive information. That's just best practice, like your address and all your personal information. And again, just stressing this, ensure you do not lie about your skills and abilities. I've seen it so many times at this point where, we're asking you about something that you said it on your CV. We even showed the candidate their CV. Here's where you said it. And they're like, I don't know that. So be mindful, because it will get picked up eventually. If you don't know, as a grad, we don't expect you to know everything. You're a grad, you're looking for a job for a reason, to gain more skills. It's not us expecting you to know everything. Things can be taught to you. So share with us what you know, and what you don't know, we'll be happy to teach you. And then LinkedIn's role in tech recruitment. So I just included some stats here. So LinkedIn is used approximately by 87% of recruiters for sourcing and researching candidates. So when I was looking for senior software engineers, LinkedIn was my main source for searching for candidates, not just engineers, but generally any role. And it's quite easy to use. I search up industry or a particular skills. If I'm looking for a .NET developer, then you go .NET developer in the search bar, and there's hundreds, if not thousands of them. And then approximately 77% of tech companies report making hires through LinkedIn. So I actually found my job at Box Fusion through LinkedIn. The job ad went out. It was not even up for 20 minutes. I hit apply. Half an hour later, I got an email for an HR screening, and lo and behold, I am here talking to you. So LinkedIn does help, which is why making use of it is extremely important. And then recruiters use LinkedIn to source passive candidates, validate experience, assess professional branding, and look for mutual connections. So sometimes, and especially for graduate hires, not everybody is particularly in final year or close to completing their qualification, but there are some talented individuals in first or second year that we particularly want to keep updated on, if I could say that, for our ensuring our talent pipeline of sorts. Even in senior recruitment, somebody may potentially not be able to join Box Fusion right now, but the person is a good fit, and you want to keep that connection or maintain that connection, ensuring that there's a talent pipeline. So one day this individual can join Box Fusion. And then I just have here how candidates can optimize their LinkedIn profile. So this is just 9 tips. I know that not everybody has the ability to afford a professional photographer, but if it's just, a headshot, shoulders and above on your profile picture, that is more than acceptable. On LinkedIn, you can add any certifications and awards, create a unique and relevant headline. So that's particularly important. Some people's headline is just their job title, which is completely acceptable. Others go beyond that. I think mine has quite a few things on it. It is a long headline, but the headline has to be suitable for what it is you're looking for. So having something like software engineering student at Melsoft Academy, that's completely acceptable and completely fine. Or finally a BSc computer science student, those are fine as well. Because when you're looking for grads, we typically we know that you're still in school, and those would be the searches we would go for. Ask peers or professors to endorse your skills. So if you're familiar with LinkedIn, I can very well put on there that Danelia knows how to use Excel. And I can ask Larith to endorse my skills. If he's, seen my skills, he's seen how talented I am in Excel, which I'm not, but he can just endorse those skills if he's seen me work with it. And then update your profile often. So a lot happens in an individual's life. I'm not saying you need to update your profile every day or every week, but try to check it and update it at least once a month. You get a new certification, you want to add it on. You probably got a new headshot, you want to update it. You got a new role, put it on there. Even if it's a volunteering role, be sure to let people know. Share your biggest achievements, both academic and professional, and follow groups, industry professionals, and companies. I cannot stress how important it is to follow individuals and groups in which you are interested in. I think LinkedIn is such a great source of information. I mean, for me personally, as an HR person, there's so many things that I learned on LinkedIn that I'm actually applying in real life in my job. And given the space I am in, the tech space, there is just too much information. So you should more than willingly make use of it. Follow individuals. See, like for example, if you want to be a software developer, follow senior people in industry, or maybe even juniors. Find out how they got there. I find that most people on LinkedIn are more than willing to share information. There's never, well, I haven't had an experience where people are like, no, I'm not responding to you, or I'm not answering your question. People are generally forthcoming. Also follow companies that you're interested in working for. You may be particularly interested in working for a company. Maybe you're a student and there's still some time before you're actually in the world of work. But get to know their culture, get to know their people, their initiatives, what they're about, because certain things like that will actually help you stand out in the interview process. Not so long ago, I had an interview for the software engineering role. And this particular individual asked a lot of questions about products that are not displayed on our website, which was quite impressive, which means she did her homework beyond just the website. So those things really do make you stand out, and she did get appointed, by the way. And then use your elevator pitch as your about section. So everybody gets that small bio or about section just beneath their name, and that's typically, what you're about. So for me, I am an HR professional in recruitment and developing grad programs, working with career fairs and institutions. My background is in psychology. I have a certificate in AI and HR, financial literacy, and at the end of your about section, have a call to action. So mine is, if you have a way to empower or help graduates, let's connect, let's chat. For yours, you could potentially put, I'm a software engineering grad, looking to explore potential partnerships or work on exciting projects, let's connect. A call to action at the end is always, it makes it more personal, it's not just the generic message that you actually copied and pasted from ChatGPT. It's very, very personal. So your skills, your experience, your background, and what it is that you're passionate about generally goes in the about section. And then engagement. You can very, very well have a great LinkedIn profile. It's polished, it's got everything on there, but you're not active. And that's a problem. So comment, react with your connections, engage in content, ask questions. If somebody posted an article, contribute to the community which you're looking to enter in. So that would be, in this case, the tech community. Get involved with the industry leaders of the tech community. Ask questions. It will just make you stand out in those particular groups. And then benefits of LinkedIn for students. So I've had the unfortunate experience of students telling me LinkedIn is only for people who have jobs. And that is not the case. No. I mean, I wish I knew sooner that I should have gotten a LinkedIn profile, probably like first or second year. I only got one when I started realizing I need a job, to be quite honest. But the sooner you get one, the better for you. So here's just something. So build your network, recommendations and endorsements, which I spoke about, personal branding. So that's particularly important because what are you about? What do you stand for? What are you passionate about? So building a personal brand, and it starts somewhere small. I mean, for me, before I started at Box Fusion, I had no posts on mine. I was just there solely looking for jobs. But if I thought back then, or if I knew then what I knew now, I would have had a totally different approach. I would have engaged with HR professionals, asked more questions, if anything. And I think it would have been to my benefit. But that's things that I do now. If I see something of particularly of interest to me, or it came from a writer or someone's profile, I go there, I ask them questions, can you share your experiences? Anything that would, aid my understanding in the professional sense. So personal branding, particularly important, what you stand for. People generally associate certain things with certain people, like Lareth, for example. When I see his content, I know it's going to be tech related, especially when he's talking to certain individuals. I know that they're readers in the tech community, in the industry. So Lareth has a personal brand. When people see my content, and I've been told that we know it's graduate related, a lot of the things from you come, are about graduates. So building a personal brand is important. Using it to get job alerts. So you can set the city you want to get job alerts from and the particular matching titles. So you can set it up as software engineering grad or intern, and you only want to get alerts from City of Joburg, for example. I mentioned sharing updates. I mentioned research and growth. LinkedIn is an extension of your CV, essentially. To prove dedication, which is particularly important. I mean, taking the time out of your day-to-day to commit to having your online presence, it just shows dedication. You're involved, you're active in the community, you want information, you're willing to share information. I think that's particularly important, and it just relates to an increased presence online. Then dangers of social media. So as much as having a personal brand is great, being out there is fantastic, but in a time where I think a lot of us on our phones quite frequently, as much as information is so easily accessible, we have to be careful of what we say. And so I think the first one here is avoid unprofessional content, avoid controversial opinions, complaining about past employers. So just not on social media, but even in an interview. If someone asks you why you're leaving your current role, the go-to should never be to complain about the previous employer. It's not a good look. And then tagging people in inappropriate content or unnecessarily. I get tagged in a lot of things. Some of these people I don't even know, to be quite honest. And then engaging in hateful discourse about recruiters. When I tell you some of the things I've seen on LinkedIn, and some of these individuals have actually applied to roles at Box Fusion, it just leaves a sour taste in one's mouth, especially the recruiter. Somebody saying, "Oh, recruiters, they take us for granted," or somebody unfortunately said they're going to hell. But now I wouldn't want to work with somebody like that, because I know that this is how they feel about recruiters. So be mindful. I'm not saying don't have opinions, but just be mindful of what you put out there. And then also don't fall victim to job scams. I actually saw one for Box Fusion not so long ago, and I was quite appalled by it. If it is not the official website, don't click the link, don't apply. If it is not from, or sometimes they ask you to email your CV, which in some cases are true, but be careful of the email address as well. In this case, it will be my name at boxfusion.io. It always has to be the company domain at the end, whatever the company it is you're applying for. So don't fall victim to such scams. Also, nobody's going to ask you for money in the recruitment process, so please don't do that either. And the reason why I wanted to stress this more importantly is because companies are now doing, I mean, I'm sure many of you are aware of, background checks, credit checks, and so on. Employers do that, but now they are doing social media checks. And not just on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, there's too many of them. What are you saying online? Because yes, we can employ you. You can be a very, very talented individual, but you're not particularly saying the right things online. I can't employ you if you're not saying appropriate things, because it's going to tarnish the brand. This person, it will always be known that this person works with this company and this is what they think, So be careful. I mean, I love TikTok. I'm not a TikToker, but I will doom scroll sometimes when I have a moment. I believe in social media and the benefits it has. But be mindful of what you put out there. You definitely don't want to, something you post in like 2 minutes or so could be career ending, and you don't want that. And I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. I am not sure if there is any questions. I did go over time. Sorry for that.
Awesome. That was incredible. So much value that you've dropped there. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise and for sharing all these nuggets. What an incredible session. So we're going to take questions. Please just type your questions in the chat box or in the Q&A. But whilst we wait, I did have a couple of questions. The first is I'm sure a lot of people are seeing this for graduate roles. There's a requirement for BSc degrees in most of them. They want to see someone who has a degree. How can people that are bootcamp graduates or self-taught developers stand out and make it past that first gate?
Oh, for Box Fusion specifically, we don't look for those who have BSc degrees. We've employed bootcamp students in the past, but I think to give a bootcamp student the competitive advantage somewhere else, you should showcase the stuff you've worked on, the technical projects you've worked on. University graduates do it as part of their degree, and they have 3 years worth of projects, for example, for as long as their degree is. And a boot camp can sometimes be 6 months or 1 year. And in that case, even if it means going beyond your boot camp and working on something, on the side, a personal project, do it, take the time. If it's 1 hour a day, do it every day, work on it, contribute to it. Because the truth of the matter is, in terms of the GitHub profile, when recruiters actually go and look at that, we actually check your activity. That's the greatest feature, and we like to see the more green, the nicer it is. So be active in the community, display your projects. Don't just say you went to Melsoft Academy and you did this boot camp. Show us evidence of work. There are a lot of self-taught developers out there. There's no mistake about that, but you just have to show your work.
All right, great. And the last question that I had was, what do you look for in an interview? How do you know when you're interviewing someone that this person is a great candidate?
So generally, I know from the HR side, we like the individuals that are team players. They don't stress too much that, teamwork is a big thing. Able to work alone, capable of working alone, but also capable of working in a team. Somebody who's able to prioritize and manage their deadlines. School can be high pressured just as much as the workplace, even more so. Are you able to manage that? Oftentimes, myself included, we find ourselves working full time, studying part time. Are you able to manage all of that? And then on the technical side, we don't expect you to know all the answers to the technical questions. If you do, then fantastic, that's great. But for example, if the panel were to ask you something, a question, and say, please explain how you would approach this in C#, and you don't know, so that's completely fine. What you could do is say, I have never worked with this particular thing, but this is how I would do it in the programming languages I am familiar with. We want to see how you solve problems. What's your train of thought in approaching a problem? Even in interviews, I see candidates choke up, and I have to remind them, have a sip of water. We provide you water. If you're not sure, say you're not sure. Let's move on to the next question. Even if you need time to think about something and you do, just tell the panel member, can we please circle back to this question? I need some time to think. And generally, we give you actually pen and paper, or you can bring your own, because especially for these technical interviews, whilst we may not be asking you to code, you want to write down what it is you're thinking, or try to put it together. And putting it down on pen and paper is much easier than actually saying it out loud. So you're more than welcome to do that. The VP of engineering at Box Fusion, he actually says that we can teach you skills, but we cannot teach you passion. And passion for your job and passion for tech is very important. If you're passionate about what you do, everything else will come to you naturally.
Wow, incredible stuff. So we've got more questions. From Twarisani, is the grad program still open?
Yes, so if you go to my LinkedIn, you will see that I did a post not so long ago, but I will share it with Lareth in an email after this, that he can share with everyone. Basically, the link takes you to these assessments, which you can complete, and those who perform really, really well will be invited to an interview. So in short, yes, it is open.
Awesome. Then we have a question from Lungile on YouTube. Why do you get asked about your salary or payslip during the interview process by prospective employers? Does that not breach the confidentiality agreement between you and your current employer?
So the reason why people ask for salaries upfront, and I've done it before, sometimes some individuals are too expensive, and it's out of our budget. So instead of wasting my time and your time, I'd rather find out upfront, are you within the budget for this role or not? We get this dedicated assigned budgets. If, for example, 20,000 Rand for a PA, I'm not allowed to go for more than 20,000 Rand. That's part of my organizational goals. Danelia has to report back on that. And now Danelia has found this really great person. The hiring panel was impressed. And then the candidate actually says, well, I make 30. And now Danelia has wasted everybody's time. So that's why we ask for budgets, for salary. And then the other thing is generally best practice when you are jumping from role to role. The general rule of thumb is a salary increase anywhere between 10 and 20% when you're changing roles. Obviously, if it's like a lateral, you're going from junior position here to junior position, it should be in the 10 to 20. But if you're going from junior here to potentially maybe intermediate in another company, you could expect a larger increase than just the 20%, depending on what the business is offering.
Oh, great answer. And whilst we're still on that, how much can graduates expect to earn straight out of university or coding bootcamp?
So I can't speak on any other organizations, but for Box Fusion, it's quite large. It's anywhere from 18 to 25.
Very generous. You guys are very, very generous. Me, I also want a job at Box Fusion now.
You can send me your CV. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, great. Then another question from YouTube. If a person deleted their social media or made it private, will companies still judge a candidate based on their past actions or behavior?
So it depends. Some people, or rather some companies, they spend a lot of money to dig into that type of information. So you could have deleted your account. There's that saying about digital footprint for a reason. It's you put it out there, it's going to be out there forever, regardless of whether you delete it or not. But in the South African context, I mean, in cases like if it was a video that was surfacing and trending, an individual is not going to forget a face or a name that was attached to that particular video. So in those cases, you might experience difficulties, but then oftentimes a lot of people, what they do now, especially in the professional context, if they are, for example, on Twitter or Facebook, they don't use their real names or their actual email addresses anymore. Like for me, I am on Twitter, but I don't contribute. I just view things, but you'd never find me there. Simply because, some people just prefer to have things private, and that's fine. But to answer your question in short, as long as it's nothing that is too out there that people can remember and recall off the top of their head, you should be fine. But I think going forward, if you have done something in the past, keep a clean profile. It's particularly important. I mean, I see, like I mentioned, the people engaging in hateful discourse about recruiters. I'm sure they connected with many other recruiters besides me, and I'm sure many of the other recruiters saw that too. And now all of us think the same thing about this particular individual. So definitely be mindful, but you shouldn't be too concerned unless you went viral for something bad.
Okay, thank you so much. Then we have Sitembile Shezi. Very good question. Why can't the package be made visible to the candidate during advertisement of the opportunity?
So the reason for that is because generally the rule of thumb is new hires have, or rather the HR people get a bigger budget for new hires as opposed to people that are already in the organization, right? So for example, and this is not a real example, but just to tell you, let's say Box Fusion is looking for a junior software engineer. And now the new benchmark for junior software engineers are 25,000, right? For an example, between 25 and 27,000. And this is the budget we've got, so we were like, okay, let's go with it. But our internal junior engineers, when we hired them 2 years back, the benchmark was 23. So they have been getting 23, obviously with their annual percentage increases. So maybe they've been with Box Fusion for 2 years and they're close to 24, close to 25, but not exactly 25. So many things are taken into consideration, the internal people, and generally there is rule of thumb between 10 and 12% for increases for really, really great performers internally. But like I'm saying, when people are jumping, it's anything between 10 and 20%. So new people, there's generally more money for new people, if that makes sense. And it would potentially cause a disrupt. And imagine if we were to now say, okay, this is the new benchmark, we'd be paying, the salary bill will go through the roof for the existing people. Yeah. If that answers your question. Also, for more than that, Salary information is typically confidential because now internally everybody has seen this job post. And whilst, yes, they might be aligned or not too far off, now Danilia is coming into Box Fusion, and because they saw the job post, everybody knows Danilia makes 10,000 Rand. So that's also another issue. So the reason for it being so sensitive is to not offend anybody in the process, and also to, should you be successful in the job, I don't think you want anybody to know how much you're making.
Yeah. Oh, true. Interesting. I think this is the last question from Msawe Nkosi. How possible is it to consider individuals that graduated in economics or with an economics degree to transition to a data analytics or tech field?
Honestly, we make provisions for those who are pivoting. You won't be the first. I think a couple of years back, this was before my time, but he's now a junior engineer at Box Fusion. He actually came from the military, and he decided he wants to do software development. As long as you're displaying that you've got the skills and you've done the hard work and you've put in the time to make the transition, that shouldn't disqualify you, not in the smallest sense.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Janelia. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Incredibly, most people that joined stayed on the call. So that just shows you that there was an incredible amount of value that was being shared. And yeah, that's all for today, guys. I'm sure you guys got a lot of value. If you want to learn more, you can connect with Danilia on LinkedIn. Just search for her full name, you'll find her. And for those that are interested in joining Melsoft Academy, we are running a huge Black Friday special. There is another webinar tomorrow where we'll share the details for that. And then, yeah, we can catch up there. So thank you so much, everyone. We can now go. Have a great rest of your day. And always remember that the truth shall set you free.
Thanks, Larry. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.